They always laughed the loudest when it was about me. Dinner at our house was never quiet. Plates clattered, voices overlapped, and jokes flew like arrows. I was usually the target. It didn't matter what the conversation started with. Politics, school, work. It somehow always circled back to me and something I'd said wrong, or stupid, or so typically her. My brother Josh once told a story about how I didn't know what mutual fund meant when I was 15. Everyone roared like it was the greatest stand-up act ever written. My uncle nearly choked on his food. I smiled, even laughed a little, because what else could I do? That story was 6 years old. I now manage my own finances better than most adults I know. But none of them ever asked. My mother would shake her head after I spoke, as if I was a lost cause. "She means well," she'd say with a sigh, "the way you talk about someone with a hopeless condition." I wasn't loud like Josh. I didn't correct people like my cousin Hannah, who was always right. I just watched, listened, memorized their tells, the way my father's eyebrow twitched when he lied, how my aunt pursed her lips before delivering a fake compliment. I saw everything. They thought I was dumb. They said it, sometimes in softer words, but always with sharp eyes. They talked over me, explained things I already knew, mocked the things I loved. And every time they laughed at me, I laughed too. Quietly, but not for the reason they thought. 'Cause I was taking notes. Every insult, every eye roll, every backhanded comment. I logged them in my heart like puzzle pieces. Not out of revenge. Just out of truth. They thought they were defining me, but all they were doing was revealing themselves. They called me stupid. But they had no idea who they were raising. At school, I blended into the background like I was part of the wallpaper. Teachers rarely remembered my name unless it was attached to a mistake. I wasn't disruptive, I wasn't brilliant, I was invisible. I remember in 6th grade, Mrs. Tanner told my mom during a parent-teacher meeting, "She's sweet, but she just isn't very quick." I heard it through the crack in the office door. My mother didn't even defend me. She nodded like she'd known it all along. That day I walked home slower than usual, feeling like I was walking underwater. That was the first time I truly believed I might actually be stupid. I didn't raise my hand after that. What was the point? But something strange started happening in the quiet of being overlooked. While the louder kids showed off their answers and corrected each other, I started to notice everything else. The way someone's voice changed when they were nervous, how the teacher smiled longer at certain kids, how the popular girls looked confident but always sat near the exits like they wanted to run. I watched, I listened, I absorbed. And when I went home I read. Not textbooks, the way they explained things never made sense to me. I read stories, biographies, anything I could borrow from the school library. I read about minds that didn't fit the mold like me. People who were misunderstood, underestimated, even mocked. The words wrapped around me like armor. I started a notebook I never showed anyone. My little book of everything. I filled it with random facts, quotes that moved me, questions I didn't yet have the answers to. It became my private classroom. My family still saw me the same way. If I said something during dinner, my father would squint like he couldn't believe I was attempting to join the conversation. My cousin once asked me if I'd figured out how to spell psychology yet. They laughed. I didn't. But I memorized that moment. They saw a girl with slow words and quiet eyes. But inside me, a wildfire was quietly building. In high school I got a part-time job at a bookstore. More because I liked the silence than anything else. That's where I met Mrs. Delaney. She was in her 70s, wore mismatched cardigans, and asked if I'd ever read Virginia Woolf. I told her no. The next day she brought me a copy of A Room of One's Own, and something shifted in me when I read the first few pages. It was the first time someone made me feel like maybe I wasn't the fool everyone thought. Mrs. Delaney would chat with me during my shifts. She asked my opinions, waited for my answers. She treated my thoughts like they mattered. I never told my family about her. She felt like a secret, one I wasn't willing to let them ruin. By the time I was 17, I had learned how to fix things around the house, budget grocery lists, de-escalate my father's temper, and read people's emotions better than any adult I knew. None of those skills were graded, so nobody noticed. But I did. And in the rare moments when I was alone and could hear my own thoughts, I felt something I couldn't quite name. Like pride but quieter. Like power but still waking up. I wasn't dumb. I was different. I was growing sideways, not upward. Not in the way they expected. But growing all the same. They thought they knew me because they knew who I used to be. But they never saw the girl hiding in the margins, teaching herself how to move through a world that didn't wait for people like her. One day they would. And on that day, they'd realize the girl they mocked had built an entire world behind their backs. Quietly. Brilliantly. And without their permission. It was my birthday. I didn't expect much. Just dinner with the family, maybe a cake, maybe not. I had stopped expecting warmth a long time ago. But still, there's a part of you that hopes. Birthdays are supposed to mean something, right? Everyone was there. My parents, my brother Josh, Aunt Miriam, Uncle Phil, my cousin Hannah. Of course. She had just started her MBA and didn't let a single person forget it. The meal started fine, in that tense way family meals usually do in our house. My mom brought out spaghetti, my childhood favorite, though no one acknowledged that, and the conversation turned to jobs and promotions like always. "I guess we know who's getting the big money soon," Dad said, raising his glass to Josh, who had just landed some middle management job in finance. Everyone clapped. I did too. Then, like clockwork, the shift came. "And you?" Aunt Miriam asked, turning to me with that fake curious voice. Still, figuring it out. I had a part-time job at a cafe and was freelancing graphic designs on the side, slowly building a client list. I opened my mouth to explain, but Josh interrupted before I could. "She's an artist now, didn't you hear?" he said, smirking. Next stop, starving in a Paris alley with a paintbrush. The table erupted in laughter. Even Mom smiled. Even she laughed. I felt the heat rush up my chest, but I kept my face still. I didn't want them to see they'd hurt me. Again. Then came the line that finally cracked something inside me. "Don't take it personally," Dad said, waving his hand like he was brushing crumbs off the table. "You've just always been, a little behind the curve." That was it. Not the words exactly, but the way he said it. Dismissive. So certain. Like my identity was sealed and stamped by their opinion. That night, I went to bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. My chest burned. Not from rage, not even sadness. It was something different. Something awake. They gave me the role of the fool, but I rewrote the script. That was the night I stopped trying to earn their respect. That was the night I decided to build my own. Over the next year, I devoured everything I could get my hands on. I took online classes in UX design and branding, stayed up late learning software, reading case studies, and emailing small businesses to offer free help in exchange for experience. I built my own website from scratch, designed logos, rebranded small shops. One client turned into 3, then 5. I stopped asking for permission to matter. No one in my family knew. Not at first. They still thought I was just drifting. But I was carving, chiseling, sharpening. Not with anger. With precision. Because now I understood. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to beg. I needed to become undeniable. They called me dumb. And maybe they believed it. But that didn't make it true. I wasn't just proving them wrong anymore. I was proving myself right. Change didn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It was more like dawn, quiet, slow, and impossible to ignore once it came. I started with small decisions. I got serious about my health, not because of how I looked, but because I was tired of feeling like a passenger in my own body. I cut out what made me feel small. Junk food, doom scrolling, people-pleasing. I walked every morning before the city woke up, earbuds in, podcasts playing. Not self-help fluff, but real strategies on growth, branding, business, grit. I stopped waiting for someone to tell me I was ready. I started acting like I already was. My freelance design work picked up. The coffee shop clients I'd worked with introduced me to others. Restaurants, boutiques, musicians needing album covers. Charged more. People paid it. I reinvested in better software, better hardware. I registered a business name. Bright Grit Studio. The first time a client said, I chose you because your work makes me feel something. I almost cried. Not because I doubted it, but because someone else finally saw what I knew was there. One of the biggest turning points came through a national contest I stumbled across online. A design competition hosted by a sustainable fashion brand. It was open to new artists and promised the winner a feature campaign and $10,000. I almost didn't enter. The little voice that still carried their doubt whispered, "Who do you think you are?" But louder than that, something inside me said, "Try." So I did. I worked for weeks straight, sleeping 4 hours a night, designing something that blended movement, culture, and color in a way that felt like a reflection of me. Layered, unexpected, sharp, and soft at once. 2 months later, I got the email. "Congratulations, you're the winner." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Then I screamed. Then I cried. They featured me in a write-up. My face, my words, my design. For once, the world saw me not as a background extra, but as the main story. That win brought more opportunities. I was invited to speak at a local creative panel. My Instagram grew. Other young women reached out saying my journey gave them hope. Me, the slow one, the quiet one, the disappointment. And still, even as my life blossomed, my family didn't change much. I'd go home for a birthday or holiday and someone would say, "So, still doing that little art thing?" Like I was finger painting for pocket change. They didn't ask about the business, or the campaign, or the clients flying me out for projects. They still saw what they wanted to see. But the difference now was, I didn't need them to see me. I saw myself. Their approval no longer held me hostage. And I wasn't alone anymore either. There was Theo, a photographer I met during a campaign shoot. He was the first man who truly listened. He didn't flinch at my ambition or try to shrink it. When I doubted myself, he didn't dismiss me. He asked, "What would happen if you believed in yourself the way I believe in you?" We weren't in love, not yet, but he became a mirror I hadn't known I needed. Someone who reflected my light back to me without distortion. Then there was Marisol, an older creative director I'd met during that same shoot. She had this fire in her, like she had walked through her own hell and come out golden. She took me under her wing without ever saying the word mentor. She just started calling me sharp girl, and inviting me into rooms I never imagined being in. When I once nervously told her about how my family still talked down to me, she raised an eyebrow and said, "Sounds like they're the ones who feel small, not you." I smiled so hard my face hurt. Success didn't feel like revenge. Felt like liberation. I stopped shrinking my voice. When people underestimated me now, I let them. Then I let my work speak louder. That's the trick. Don't argue. Just deliver. Let excellence stun the silence into their throats. One night, I sat in my tiny apartment, drinking tea and looking over a mood board for a big brand redesign I just landed. I thought about how far I'd come. How once upon a time they called me stupid. And for a while I almost believed them. But I was never stupid. I was silent, observing, becoming. And now I was undeniable. I didn't need a round of applause from the people who never clapped for me. I had built a stage of my own, and the right people were already in the audience. Cheering, clapping, standing. They never expected me to become this woman. But I did. And that's all that matters. It was a reunion dinner. The kind my family planned once every few years to remind themselves they were still together, even when everything in between said otherwise. The room was loud with clinking glasses and fake laughter. Everyone was there, Josh, Hannah, Aunt Miriam, Dad, Mom. I hadn't seen most of them in months. And still it felt like nothing had changed. I wore a soft navy jumpsuit and minimal gold jewelry. Clean, elegant. I didn't want to dazzle anyone. I wanted to feel like me, the woman I had become. They didn't see that, of course. As soon as I walked in, Josh called out, "Look who's finally joining us from her little art cave." Cue the laughter. Mom kissed my cheek and said, "You look rested. I guess freelancing has its perks." And then Hannah, always precise with her blade. "I read a blog about people who leave traditional paths because they can't handle real competition. Brave of you." Smiled. Not tight, not fake. Still. A year ago, even a comment like that would have sent me spiraling internally. Question everything. Wonder if I was making a mistake. Shrink back into the shadows. But not now. Now, I simply said, actually, I didn't leave anything. I built something. They blinked at me. Silence just for a second. Then someone, I think it was Uncle Phil, changed the subject. I sat through the meal listening. Watching. Just like I used to. But this time I wasn't invisible. I was aware. I noticed how often they interrupted one another to sound smarter. How they mocked people not in the room to boost themselves. How no one asked real questions. Just surface-level status checks dressed as conversation. Then it happened. Dad looked across the table and said, "So, how's your little, whatever it is you do, the arts and crafts empire?" They all chuckled again. But I didn't. Put my fork down. Wiped my mouth. Sat back in my chair. And this time, I didn't stay silent. "I need to say something," I said. Even. The table quieted. Heads turned. You could feel it, the shift. Like a storm brewing but not chaotic. Controlled. Powerful. "For years," I began, "you've talked to me like I'm a joke. Like I'm a child you forgot to finish raising. You called me slow, mocked me, explained the obvious, and laughed when I tried to speak. You made your opinion of me very clear. And I believed you. For a long time." They looked uncomfortable. But here's the truth," I said. "You didn't know me. Not then. Not now. I may have been quiet, unsure, slow to speak. But I was never stupid. I felt my voice deepen. Not louder, just rooted. I run a design studio now. Clients across the country. I've been featured in a national campaign. I've spoken on panels. I've made more in the past 6 months than I made in the last 3 years combined. And no, I don't tell you this to impress you." I leaned forward slightly. "I tell you this because I'm done carrying the weight of your disbelief." Their faces were still. Like statues. Not angry, just stunned. "I'm not looking for applause. I don't need your validation anymore. But I will not keep shrinking to make you feel comfortable. I will not keep pretending your comments are harmless. They're not. You didn't raise me with love. You raised me with sarcasm, doubt, and constant dismissal." Someone, maybe Mom, opened her mouth. I lifted a hand gently. "I'm not here for a fight. I'm just here to speak the truth, finally." Understood. "I wish you well. I hope, genuinely, that someday you find the strength to see people for who they are. Not just who you need them to be to feel superior." I looked around the table. Met every eye. "I am not stupid." And then, without waiting for a response, I walked away. No slamming doors. No dramatics. Just grace. Outside, the air was cool and sweet. Like freedom. Like peace. I walked to my car, each step steady, like I was stepping into a new story. One I had written with my own hands in my own time. They could keep laughing if they wanted. But now, they'd do it in the silence of their own disbelief. Because I had shown them who I was. And I didn't need them to believe it. Already did. They used to laugh at me. Not the kind of laugh that spills from joy, but the kind that sharpens itself like a blade. It followed me through birthdays, family dinners, casual conversations, like a ghost that only I could hear clearly. It didn't matter what I said or did. Somehow it was always turned into a punchline. For a long time I carried that laughter like a weight. I bent beneath it, thinking it defined me. Maybe I was slow. Maybe I was foolish. Maybe I really didn't understand how the world worked. But here's the truth they never counted on. That same laughter became the fire beneath my wings. Every insult was a spark. Every condescending look, a push forward. Every moment they underestimated me. That was fuel. I didn't become strong in spite of them. I became strong because of them. Not because they were right, but because their doubt forced me to choose. To rise or to disappear. To believe in their version of me or create my own. And I chose myself. It wasn't loud at first. It was quiet, deliberate. Choosing discipline over distraction. Choosing courage over comfort. Choosing love over fear. Especially love for myself. Now I wake up each day not with dread, but with purpose. My apartment isn't big, but it's mine. My mornings are filled with work I created, clients I respect, a calendar I own. I no longer beg to be heard. I am heard because I speak from a place no one can shake anymore. And it's not just about success. It's not just about proving them wrong. I don't wake up thinking about revenge. I don't need it. I've moved past their gaze, past their limits, past their laughter. I walk through this world in full color now. Bold, expressive, confident. I speak without asking for permission. I take up space without apologizing. I laugh, the kind that's real, and I dance when music hits my spirit. I help others rise because I know how it feels to be ignored, mocked, doubted. I am not angry anymore. I am free. And I carry a strength that no one can see. Not at first. It's not loud. It's not muscle or noise. It's in the way I hold my head when someone questions me. It's in the way I say no now without guilt. It's in the softness I refuse to lose, even after everything. I've realized something beautiful. They called me foolish, but they were wrong. I was simply growing. Quietly. Powerfully. And now I am a force. Let them laugh. Let them wonder. I carry 2 billion strengths now. Because I believed when no one else did. They used to laugh at me. Not the kind of laugh that spills from joy, but the kind that sharpens itself like a blade. It followed me through birthdays, family dinners, casual conversations, like a ghost that only I could hear clearly. It didn't matter what I said or did. Somehow it was always turned into a punchline. For a long time I carried that laughter like a weight. I bent beneath it, thinking it defined me. Maybe I was slow. Maybe I was foolish. Maybe I really didn't understand how the world worked. But here's the truth they never counted on. That same laughter became the fire beneath my wings. Every insult was a spark. Every condescending look, a push forward. Every moment they underestimated me. That was fuel. I didn't become strong in spite of them. I became strong because of them. Not because they were right, but because their doubt forced me to choose. To rise or to disappear. To believe in their version of me or create my own. And I chose myself. It wasn't loud at first. It was quiet, deliberate. Choosing discipline over distraction. Choosing courage over comfort. Choosing love over fear. Especially love for myself. Now I wake up each day not with dread, but with purpose. My apartment isn't big, but it's mine. My mornings are filled with work I created, clients I respect, a calendar I own. I no longer beg to be heard. I am heard because I speak from a place no one can shake anymore. And it's not just about success. It's not just about proving them wrong. I don't wake up thinking about revenge. I don't need it. I've moved past their gaze, past their limits, past their laughter. I walk through this world in full color now. Bold, expressive, confident. I speak without asking for permission. I take up space without apologizing. I laugh, the kind that's real, and I dance when music hits my spirit. I help others rise because I know how it feels to be ignored, mocked, doubted. I am not angry anymore. I am free. And I carry a strength that no one can see. Not at first. It's not loud. It's not muscle or noise. It's in the way I hold my head when someone questions me. It's in the way I say no now without guilt. It's in the softness I refuse to lose, even after everything. I've realized something beautiful. They called me foolish, but they were wrong. I was simply growing. Quietly. Powerfully. And now I am a force. Let them laugh. Let them wonder. I carry 2 billion strengths now. Because I believed when no one else did.